Welcome back. So, we discovered what a conditional statement is in the last video. Now let's explore some more ways to use them. So, to combine sort of some stuff we know, let's make a function. Let's make a function. I'm going to define that function by saying even check, right? We're going to check if a number is even. So I'm going to take num as a parameter. And we know that to check if a number is even, you have to take the mod 2 of that number and see if it's equal to 0, which is a condition. So I can make that the condition of an if statement. If num mod 2 is equal to 0, now that's going to be the header of the if statement. So you have to put the colon. If num mod 2 is equal to 0, we are going to print out that num is an even number. Then I'm going to back out. I could do else. And then the only other outcome, I'm not going to do else if, because the only other outcome is that your number is an odd number. And now I can back out of that, and we're good. So now I've defined this function where it's going to check if my number's even. So let's use it. Even check. I'll start out with 4. We run the program, and it says that yes, 4 is an even number. Amazing. What it does is, alright, 4 is the argument that gets set equal to the parameter num. It checks if num mod 4 is equal to 2, then it prints out the value of num and then is an even number. And ignores the else statement. If it's a 5, 5 is an odd number because it fails the first check, runs the second check. Okay? Alright. So, other things we could do. Well, just like how we had a function, and inside of that function we had an if statement and an else statement, we can put if statements inside of if statements. We can fit entire chains. So, what does that mean? Well, x is some number. Actually, let me just. All right, x is equal to. I'm just gonna put input. What value is x? You know, this will honestly make my life a bit easier if we just make these variables, so I don't have to keep changing the values all the time. That's what's so cool about inputs. You don't have to go back and retype different numbers. You could just enter them as we run the program. Anyway, so what I'm gonna do is let's make some if statements. I don't know. They could be pretty arbitrary. If x is equal to y, print out x is equal to y. Else. Now, the two scenarios we have under the else statement are that it could either be less than or greater than. So I could say if X is less than Y. Print out X is less than Y. And then the other outcome would have to be that X is greater than Y. So notice how we have this else statement here, and then this if statement and else statement within the else statement. So how does this program work? Well, if I run it right now and I say the value y is, or the value x is 3, the value y is 3, x is equal to y. Okay. That's cool and all, but now what if they're different? Because we can see it clearly meets this condition. What if it doesn't? So I'm going to say x is 2, y is 3, x is less than y. So what happens is, fails the first condition, goes to the else statement. Inside the else statement, we have two more conditions. If x is less than y, it prints this out. So yeah, 2 is less than 3. That checked out, so it printed this statement, ignored this one. If we do the opposite, where like x is 5 and y is 1. So, checks the if statement, fails that condition, goes to the else statement. Checks, alright, 5 is not less than 1. So it goes to the else statement and prints that out. Now, this is kind of silly because we know we could just use an else if statement for this part. And it'll make the code a lot nicer. But who knows? Maybe we have some other situations. Like, I don't know. If x is bigger than 10, I'm going to print out wow, that's a big number. Cool. Alright, what's going on here? What's going on? Close quote. Oh. And, then I'm gonna check. Alright. If x is greater than 100, I'm gonna print out that it's a super big number. And I don't know, if x is bigger than 50, print out that's a kinda big number. And I don't know, we'll leave it like that, I guess. Yeah, let's leave it like that. And we'll make our okay, else if x is bigger than 0, print out x is kinda small. And I don't know, else whatever. This program makes no sense right now, but print out x is super small. Okay, so okay, let's get rid of this. Run it. What value is x? 1000. Wow, that's a big number. That's a super big number. So it runs this. This condition works. So it prints out, wow, that's a big number, then checks these two conditions. Fits the first criteria, so it says it's a super big number. But what if it's 55, right? Wow, that's a big number. Well, it's kind of a big number. If it's 25, wow, that's a big number because it fits this criteria, so it prints this out. Doesn't fit either of these criteria, so doesn't print either of them out. if I say x is 5, it says x is kind of small. Okay. Now, this is kind of like ugly to look at. All right, this is kind of ugly. So, what we could do is we have ways of sort of abbreviating this. So, instead of nesting all this like we have now, what I can do is say we can, combine different, conditions together using and or. So if x is greater than 10 and x is greater than 100, wow, that's a super big number. So now it kind of does basically the same thing that we had before. And else if x is greater than 10 and x is greater than 50, print out that's a kinda big number. So now it's a little bit like easier on the eyes. It doesn't, I should have really did an example where it did exactly the same thing as the list program, but it basically does the same thing. We have that, if it meets this condition, it prints out, wow, that's a super big number. If it prints out this condition, says that's a kind of big number. We can see this is a little bit easier to look at than those what we call those nested conditions, where you have an if statement inside of an if statement. Generally, what you can do is just combine the conditions into one if statement using and or. And it makes the code a lot more readable. And you can even, oh my gosh, this is so cool. This is so cool, right? Let's say I want, like, if x is less than 5. And then there's another condition. Now, if x is, I'm going to say greater than 10. No, less than 10. Sorry. Less than 10. And I want to say if x is greater than 2. If x is greater than 2. I'm going to print out x is between 2 and 10. And then, like, else, if that wasn't the case, then we would have that x is less than 2. Or greater than 10. Right? No, because then it wouldn't. No, it would just be x is less than 2. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Run the program. Say it's 6. X is between 2 and 10. If it's 1, x is less than 2. And if it's like, 213, nothing runs because we didn't have a condition for that. Now, we can clean this up, make it look nice by, again, use the and statement. So if this is true and x is greater than 2, then that condition alone informs me, that x is between 10 and 2, right? If x is less than 10 and x is greater than 2, then it must be between 2 and 10. Else, now this condition, we might have to make it else if to have the exact same output, but what I really want to show you is how you can make that nested condition very simple like this. But what is super cool is you can make this even simpler. Here's how you do that. All right. what you can do is say, this is so cool because I used to teach Java, and you couldn't do this in Java. What you can say is we can make all this a simple compound inequality. X is between 2 and 10. And if you run it, and my X value is 5, this is a condition. You can make compound inequalities. I'm sorry, in Java, you had to have it like that. You had to, and there was even more nonsense to it. And yeah, it gives us the same, it gives us the same thing, but, oh, come on. This just looks so much better. And it's so easy to read. X is between 2 and 10. If you've taken Algebra 1, you know how to read that. It's very simple. And it's just so cool that we're allowed to do that. Anyway, that is some more practice with conditional statements. And stay tuned for some more down the road.